Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Who's down with D&D?
This whole party.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
I'm down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Who's down with D&D?
This whole party.
Are you ready to get down with some D&D? I know I am. I am joined, as I am always joined, by the majestic, miraculous, and monumental Mad Wizard Merwin. Hey, man, what's going on, Shawn?
They are dropping these Unearthed Arcana articles like they're hot.
Hot like wildfire?
As the hot like Twilight. Hot like True Names.
Are those things? Like, are those things that are actually hot? I mean, they are in this instance, I suppose, huh?
I guess they are now.
What did they call this UA article? Like the Twilight hot naming something or another?
Twilight
it was in
fire name.
The Twilight fire name? Yeah, there you go. I mean, that's sorry everyone. I just once I started reading, I'm like, wow, they were trying to be punny a little bit. It's good.
I was drinking an A&W root beer last night, and on it says aged vanilla.
Yeah,
and so we decided that's my rapper name.
Aged vanilla. That makes sense.
It does. So speaking of true names, we now have my true name, Aged Vanilla.
Well, with that bit of silliness out of the way, let us get into this UA article, because we're going to talk about this and a little bit about the descent into Avernus.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're going to talk about the Twilight domain, the Circle of Wildfire, and the Onomancy arcane tradition, which is a cleric, a druid, and a wizard subclass.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's start with the Twilight domain. So, the idea about Twilight is that it's governing the transition and the blending of light into darkness. It's a time of rest and comfort, but also the threshold between safety and the unknown, and that is the theming that they are going with all the abilities inside of this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to make a quick comment about cleric domains.
Do it.
So the design of them is kind of fascinating because all the abilities of them are front-loaded.
Mm-hmm.
At level 6 is like when you get you get one at level 17, but level 6 is like the last one that's really impactful as far as the domain goes.
Right.
So there is 11 levels before you get something that is actually any kind of flavorful domain ability.
Right. Level 8, that you get one at level 8, right? But it's usually something like Divine Strike.
Or the one that lets you use your wisdom modifier to add to your spell casting damage.
Yep, those two are
for
pretty
cantrips.
much the standard ones, right?
Yeah, they're just damage increases because the cleric needs a little bit more damage output at that point.
Yep. So you're right. At level 6, that is generally where you get everything by then. Everything that's impactful, like you said, or
Because how many of our games, in reality, are going to level 17? I know there are some percentage of them that are, but not as many as are not.
Yeah, when you compare it to like level 4, how many campaigns games make it to level 4 versus level 17? You are in the single-digit percentage by the time you figure out who gets to level 17.
Yeah, it's like an 80% swing, probably.
Yeah, or more, for sure.
Yeah. All right, so that's the thing I wanted to say. So all the stuff is kind of front-loaded.
Mm-hmm.
So early on, you get bonus proficiencies. It's martial weapons and heavy armor.
Yeah, and I want to say something about this.
Sure.
So I think of Twilight Domain, and it says, light and darkness, and, shadowy, safety, unknown. For me, without even looking at anything else here, I see that, and I start thinking of mystery, right? I think of sneaky. I don't think of martial and heavy armor. It's not that that's bad. It's not overpowered. It's not anything. Just on the flavor side, it doesn't mesh with me.
I'm with you. I agree.
Okay.
Why don't you get sneak or stealth as a bonus proficiency in this?
Yeah, I would much rather see that. And I actually understand mechanically why, because a lot of the things that we're about to see are kind of paladin-y sort of buff stuff. And so when you do that, you need to be around friends.
Yeah, sort of, except when you get to Steps of the Brave, which we'll talk about later.
True. But some of the other ones, you have to be close to your allies. And so if you're going to be close to your allies, you need to be in battle. And if you're in battle and you want to survive, you need armor. So it's an interesting sort of mechanical versus flavor problem that they're solving by giving this, martial and heavy armor proficiency.
You're right. That is it is interesting. I just I agree with you. Like, it didn't like throw me off or anything like that.
Right. I mean, it's not like game breaker, but it's just it's interesting.
Well, let's talk real quick about the spells, because I didn't put them in the thing, but they are Fairy Fire and Sleep. Those make very much sense at the first level.
Yeah.
Cleric first level spells. Darkness and Invisibility, also very flavorful right in there. Aura of Vitality and Liamon's Tiny Hut. I also get those because this is about rest and recovery and that kind of stuff. Aura of Life and Greater Invisibility. Those also, like, they're pretty on point here, I feel.
Yep.
And then Circle of Power and Dream. I don't get the Circle of Power one, and I forgot to look it up. I don't know why that one's in there.
Yeah. And Dream makes sense, though.
Yeah, Dream is totally right in line. I mean, I'm sure Circle of Power is perfectly fine. I just don't understand why. Also, it's a 9th level cleric spell. It becomes a 9th level cleric spell, and, once again, we're talking way end of the bell curve.
Yeah.
Which maybe I should concern myself with that stuff, but I often don't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's worth delving into any deeper than we just did.
Yeah. So, like, they're on point there, and they got a little bit of that sneakiness going on there, right? With the invisibility and the darkness.
Yep. Because if you cast invisibility, but you're walking around in heavy armor, you're still
making noise.
Still making noise, yeah.
Now, you don't, like, on the bright side, if you have the proficiency for heavy armor, that means you can wear medium armor and light armor too.
True. Oh yeah. I mean, sure.
Yep. It's just they didn't stick in there the give them proficiency in stealth too, right?
Right.
So cool. Let's move on to Eyes of Night. So this is, you get dark vision, and it has no maximum range. So it's basically dark vision is your normal vision.
Right.
And the neat thing about this is that you can give this benefit to creatures within 10 feet of you, as many as you want within 10 feet of you. Okay. You just give it to them. But you can only do it a number of times per day equal to your wisdom modifier, and it takes a long rest to recover it. So I think it's neat because then you... I mean, once again, you don't need torches then.
Yep. It lasts for 10 minutes, so it's not forever, but it's a decent amount of time to sneak around something or go through a dark room where you don't want to light a light.
Yeah, I don't think it's any great shakes, but it's there.
Yeah, it's a first level thing. It makes sense in terms of the flavor. And what it makes me curious about is how many D&D groups just completely ignore this sort of thing after a certain level.
Yeah, I wonder, because I don't. Like, I always make, like, darkness is a real thing.
I usually, like, the first encounter, if it's a dark area and I ask, okay, who has dark vision and how are you doing light? We do that and we get that all set. But then I really don't generally mention it through the rest of the adventure. Say I'm running like a 4-hour session. Even if it would come into play, I usually forget about it.
See, the torch to me is an interesting thing because, one, torch physics in D&D aren't actually how torches work in real life.
Right.
Especially in caves and things like that.
Yeah.
So to me, it's not like once you have a torch, like I suppose I house for a little bit. Like once you have that torch out for the people that can't see in the dark, like it's there and people can generally see. But then the torch is something that I can take away from them to make things more complicated.
Yeah. No, I mean it's definitely interesting. It's something that for some reason my DM brain checks off the list and then forgets about.
I would imagine that most people do that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So that's why I wonder if giving these these sorts of lighting benefits matter in the long run to most groups. It's just an interesting question of how we play as a community.
Yeah. So with that being said, can we jump down real quick to the last ability?
Sure.
Like, this is the level 17 one, right? Like, it's called Midnight Shroud. And this allows you to choose creatures equal to your wisdom modifier to see through any of your... see through a spell that... a darkness spell that you cast. I'm like, that's really cool, but I don't know if it's really cool at level 17.
Yeah. Yeah. it may not be as powerful as some other level 17 abilities that people have. If it's going to be handy, it's going to be handy. But at level 17, how many creatures are you going to encounter that don't have true sight, blind sight, tremor sense, something like that?
Well, I can think of a ton of places that this would be hyper useful in that level 4 to 8 range.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
But yeah, level 17, I'm like, I don't know, why is that there? And of course, I looked around at some of the other level 17 powers. Honestly, they're not all that great shakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then I was like, never mind.
Yeah. My thought is, okay, great. It's definitely not overpowered, and when it comes in handy, it's going to be super handy. When it doesn't, your 17th level, you've got other stuff you can do.
Yeah, it's quite situational, right? Yep. And that's fine.
Yep.
I suppose that's fine. Then you get to the thing that I think is actually really cool. It's called Vigilant Blessing.
Mm-hmm.
So this one, it allows you to give someone advantage on their next initiative roll. You can only do this to one creature at a time. It can be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. You could do it all the time.
Yep. I love it. I think having an advantage on initiative is very powerful. If it's just one creature, per combat that's on your side, cool, do it. Give it to the rogue who needs to go first to do something. Give it to the tank. It's very situational. If you want to get the tank in the room to protect yourself, give it to that character. I like it mechanically. I like it flavor wise. I think it's fun to use. I like it all around.
Yeah, me too. I'm with you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's talk about the Channel Divinity. That's what everybody kind of gets at second level as a cleric. It's a Twilight Sanctuary. Mm-hmm. So it's an aura that projects out from 30 feet for 1 minute, and you get to do one of these things. You can give someone a D8 of temporary hit points, or you can end one effect that causes frightened or charmed. Now, this is, in my opinion, pretty potent because it's not end frightened or charmed; it's effect that causes frightened or charmed. So if there's other things attached to that, they also go away.
This is true. And the other thing is actually really powerful, too, the other part of this. So what you do is you create a sphere around you with dim light in a 30-foot radius, right? And it moves with you, and it lasts for a minute or until you are incapacitated.
I also misspoke because it's whenever a creature ends its turn in the sphere.
Right. So as long as everyone in your party stays within 30 feet of you, they get a 1d8 temporary hit points at the end of their round, or they can end that effect. So getting 1d8 temporary hit points every round is potentially very powerful.
Well, it's very huge at it's very huge at second and third level.
At second and third level, you're basically, if you're under attack, you're having a d8 less damage per round done to you, which can be pretty good.
It can really help a lot. It's it's a quarter to half of some people's hit points at that level.
Yeah, and
on average.
But I think it's great. You're using your Channel Divinity, so it's a significant resource there. So it should be good, and tactically, everyone has to stay within 30 feet of you. Okay, that could be good. It could be bad. I like it. I like it.
I like that it scales well too, because that D8 temporary hit points becomes pointless at 4th, 5th level.
Right.
But the other effect is still very useful. Because it's you don't have to roll; it just ends.
Yeah.
It's really solid.
Yep. I like it.
All right, let's talk about Steps of the Brave. I really kind of dig this one. It's very interesting, though. I'm not sure how I feel about it.
Yeah.
As far as a balance point of view.
Yep.
So you get advantage on saving throws versus frightened.
Okay.
That's personal to you.
Yep.
And this whole thing is personal to you. And then in dim light or darkness, you can use your bonus action to fly until the end of your next turn. Which means that you can combo this in darkness or dim light to fly constantly.
Constantly, yeah. Fly your walking speed constantly in dim light or darkness. And if you have a way to make darkness go with you, you can fly forever.
is really good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's personal, and that's the only reason I'm not throwing my headphones down and stomping on them and screaming, because you don't want to get too far away from your party most of the time, and you do have to make sure you're in dim light or darkness. So you're 100,000 feet in the air and flying around, and then something comes and makes bright light, you start to fall.
Yeah.
So I'm cool with that as well.
It's kind of fun. It's also really like you can fly, enjoy flying. You get to be a person that flies.
Yep.
I'm okay with it. Like it doesn't like all the reasons that you said are the reasons that I'm not also throwing my headphones on the ground and being like, why?
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. I like how you got on. You're like, I'm gonna go out on my lawn and be like, get off my lawn, but
Yep.
I'm not because it's not that bad.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stare at you with my stink eye from my lawn.
Yep. Yeah, I mean it's it's a personal thing. You fly, you go.
Plus, it just gives you as a dungeon master a bunch of reasons to like, hey, I'm gonna hit you with a light spell.
Yep. Yes, I am.
Or when the dragon breathes that fire breath, it gets really bright in the room.
It does. Guess what?
You fall like you're falling.
Terminal velocity is what? Okay.
I suppose like people have to make rulings and things like that because when the dragon breathes, like then the breath weapon goes out too. So then,
Right, yeah.
is whose turn is it? When did the turn end? There's going to be all those arguments, right?
Right. It's
cool. So it's an ability that will provoke a whole bunch of arguments too. Fantastic.
Yeah. It may get revisited upon further development.
I feel like they should fix it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like maybe like that one's got. I usually like rules that have like rulings and like wiggle room and things like that. I'm not sure how I feel about this one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a playtest document.
Yeah.
Let people playtest it and see how it goes.
Mm-hmm. I think it's in a good space though. I like the idea.
Oh, I love the idea. The idea.
All right. So the other ones, I mean, Divine Strike. You get Divine Strike. There's Divine Strike in every cleric ever. So, or not every cleric, but a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And then we mentioned Midnight Shroud already. So let's talk about the Circle of Wildfire.
Okay.
You want to start with this one?
I will do that. So druids who are members of the Circle of Wildfire understand the necessity of destruction, such as how a forest fire promotes growth. These druids bond with a primal spirit that harbors destructive tendencies, allowing the druids to use their power to create controlled flames that help flora and fauna reproduce and grow. I don't know if flame help fauna reproduce and grow, but
sure they do. When you burn down, that's like when you burn down a field. Well, maybe not the fauna. Well, I mean, it's
the flora I get. The fauna, they tend to just turn into ash. And
I mean, maybe that's more of a long-term growth thing,
Yeah.
Shawn. Like they come back later and eat the better food.
Yeah, okay. That I'll give you. But yeah, I don't think being set on fire helps you reproduce.
I feel like you're probably right.
Yeah, if so, I've been doing it wrong for several years.
Well then,
There you go.
that's dipping out of our PG rating.
Yes.
So let's talk about the spells, the spell list, and everything. So you get Firebolt as a cantrip. I love that.
Mm-hmm. Who doesn't love Firebolt?
I mean, it goes with the theme too, right?
Sure, absolutely. Nothing wrong with that at all.
This might be one of my favorite spell lists for theming ever.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's third level you get Locate Plants or Animals and Scorching Ray.
Right.
Fifth level you get Fireball as a Druid. I just want to throw that out there, which is great. And Plant Growth, which right in the theme.
Mm-hmm.
Seventh you get Aura of Life and Fire Shield.
Yep.
Ninth you get Flame Strike and Raise Dead.
Yeah.
Like it's great.
Just kill everything and then raise it.
Yeah, right? Like that's exactly what this thing is supposed to be doing, right?
Yep.
Now I feel like we're going to get into the thing where Shawn is going to be like, this is stupid.
Okay.
Probably not. Anytime. So it's called Summon Wildfire. And I think it's awesome, which means it's probably too good. So instead of shape changing, you get to drop a little fire elemental on the field and it does damage. And it's like a combatant.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell me what you think before I say what I think?
No, I honestly don't mind this. One of my favorite 4th edition classes was the Shaman, which is basically this.
That's
right?
true.
You summon your spirit, and it's on the battlefield, and it can't do everything, but it can do a lot of things, and it's okay.
I have to stop you. Did you just Chris Sneezak me?
I
Did your phone go off in the background?
just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Wow. That hardly ever happens to anybody but me.
I know.
Okay, I'm sorry. I had to point that out.
I'm duly ashamed. No, I think it's fine. I think at second level, having something do 2d10 damage to all creatures within 10 feet of it when it appears is strong, but not overpowered. And then, it's not much different than having sort of an animal companion to me. So it's not. I'm not, throwing a fit about it. I think it's okay.
Yeah, on the bright side, that 2d10 damage, it's either 2d10 damage or nothing.
Right.
Yeah, there's no save for half.
Yeah, and it's all creatures, so you can't leave your friends out of it. So that makes it a little more limited in its tactical abilities.
Mm-hmm. So there are some limiters on it.
Yeah. Yeah, so you summon this creature to a square within 30 feet of you. When you summon it, 2d10 fire damage to all creatures within 10 feet unless they make their dexterity save. Mm-hmm. It's friendly to you and your companions, and then it has its own little stat block.
It does.
And it shares your initiative count, takes its turn immediately after yours. It can only take the dodge action unless you take your bonus action to command it to dash, disengage, help, hide, or use one of its own stat block attacks.
And its turn. So here's the thing, like, if you tell it to do something on your turn, then you just have to wait till your turn's over for it to do the thing, right?
Correct. It acts immediately after you. So as a bonus action, you say, use your flame seed attack. Then you finish your turn, and then it uses its flame seed attack according to how it's written.
Yeah, and I just want to point that out because, like, it does act directly after you, but that doesn't mean that something can't take a legendary action in between your turn and its turn.
True.
So that's a thing just to think about, everybody. Like, it's not going to come up all that often, but it's a neat little thing to think about. There are things that can get in the middle. That's what I'm saying. Like, it's just, to me, that makes it interesting that you have to tell it to use your bonus action, which is on your turn, and then you have to wait till its turn to do it. So it's like a delayed, loaded action.
Yep.
Which is fine. That's the design, right?
Yep.
I like the little creature. I think it's cool. I think Flame Seed is fine as an attack. It's not too big of a deal. I like Fiery Teleportation a lot because this is a good escape power. Because this thing flies. It's got a fly speed of 20.
It can fly with you.
Yes, it can. Well, that's the wrong ability. Well, I mean, it can fly with you if you turn into a bird or something.
Yeah.
Because you're the other. If it flies with the cleric's going to fall.
That's true. Yeah, you don't want to send your fire guy with.
I have a feeling
with your Twilight cleric.
Yeah, I feel like the Wildfire Druid and the Twilight cleric wouldn't get along very well in a party together.
This is true.
Now someone's going to come up with a build that's like, these two things would go really great together.
Right, I'm going to multi-class as Twilight cleric and Wildfire Druid. Okay.
The fiery teleportation. So you can teleport each willing creature of your choice within 5 feet, up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space. And then, of course, anything that was within 10 feet of that has to make a dexterity saving throw or take a d6 plus 2 fire damage.
Yeah, and that is something that your Wildfire Spirit can do, and it recharges after a short or a long rest. So you can pull friends out of a bad spot, put them in a better spot 30 feet away, and everyone that's left needs to take some damage if they don't make their save.
Yeah, this thing, the only thing I don't like about it, I guess, is later. I feel like once you're like level 7 or 8, like it becomes less useful.
The spirit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it does, like animal companions, it does increase in its hit points, attack rolls, saving throws, and so on, as your proficiency bonus increases. Mm-hmm. It also adds to the hit and damage of the flame seed and the damage of the fiery teleportation.
Yeah, but only increased by your proficiency modifier.
Right, it's only by 1, so it doesn't. And I'm actually okay with that because what we've seen in previous editions are druids becoming way too powerful because they have animal companions and they have spells that can summon things, and then they can take their own action, and sometimes it gets a little out of control.
It's still out of control. I've talked to some people who play druids and things like that. It's still pretty out of control, even in this edition of the game.
Right. And I was hoping that like bonus actions would help, because if you have to take a bonus action to tell a creature you summon to do something, then that limits it. But if it's a spell that summons and then they can act on their own, then you're right, it's just out of control.
It is. I'm not sure. I've never actually had anybody play something that summons creatures in 5th edition D&D. I've only heard stories about it. I should really go read up on the rules about that. It's been so long since I've looked at them for how summon creatures function.
Yeah. I think it depends on the spell a lot of the time. And I don't know if there's much of a limitation in the spells themselves.
Yeah, this is me admitting that I have still have gaps in my knowledge about this game because it's hard to understand all of it all the time.
The druids that I've played with have eschewed most of the summoning stuff to just play it differently. So,
all right. So that's the wildfire spirit. We can move on. Like we could do a whole episode on like things that you summon.
Right.
Maybe we should at some point, but I don't want to do that right now.
Yep.
Let's talk about this enhanced bond. Mm-hmm. So when you hit 6th level, you get to add a D8 to any healing or fire damage that you do. Mm-hmm. Healing that you provide or fire damage, like not to every die that you roll, just a one-time thing.
Yep.
But and you also get the ability to cast spells with you or your wildfire spirit as the origin point.
Yep.
Now you have to have your wildfire spirit summoned for this to actually take effect.
Yep. And that's good. It's good. You know it goes with the whole idea of destruction plus regeneration. And I'm down with all of it.
Mm-hmm, me too. It's also one roll of the spell. I guess there's sometimes spells that can let you like roll multiple times or whatever, like over time. That's not what this does.
Yeah,
just the one time.
Mm-hmm.
Flames of Life. So this one's interesting. So when a creature dies within 30 feet of your wildfire spirit, you can use your reaction, and if you do, that creature springs up with flames. Mm-hmm. Now, anyone who touches that, you can either choose to heal them or hurt them for 2d10 plus your wisdom modifier. Mm-hmm. You can use this ability a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier per day, and then a long rest recharges it.
Yep. The only thing I'm going to complain about on this, I think it's great. I think it's flavorful. I think it's fun. Tactical, fits with the spirit of the whole thing. I don't like the phrase touches as a game mechanic. Just have it say if a creature enters the square of the flaming creature.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's a better as a game design writing rule thing. That's way better.
Yep. So that's the only net that I can pick there. And if you just change that to must enter the square, or the first time it enters the square with the dead creature, then you've got my thumbs up.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you. And then Blazing Endurance. I actually like this ability a lot. So when you drop to 0 hit points and you don't die from something, because that can happen. Yeah. You don't die. You get 1 hit point, and you gain temporary hit points equal to 5 times your Druid level. And at 14th level, that's like 70. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty good right there at 14th level. I actually quite like this. Yep. Also, you get to damage any creature you choose within 30 feet you can see for 2d10 plus your Druid level and fire damage.
Yep.
And it resets with the long rest. So, once it happens, you don't get your second life a second time. You get to be that phoenix rising from the ashes for a second.
You got it. Again, flavorful, fun. Play testing, we'll see if numbers need to be adjusted, but for the most part, I'm not unhappy with it.
All right, let's talk about the Onomancy Arcane tradition. So, I'm a big fan of true names. As an idea, there are several fantasy novel series that take into account the idea of true names of things and people.
Right.
And so here's a D&D take on it. So I was very excited to read this. It is not what I expected exactly, but it works. I think it's kind of neat. So if you haven't figured it out, onomancy is the idea of true names, power of names. So the important and key ability in a lot of this arcane tradition is extract name. So you can magically compel a creature to divulge their true name. It takes a bonus action. You target a creature within 60 feet. They make a wisdom saving throw. If they succeed, you know that you failed, and you can't use this feature on the target again. If they fail, they're charmed until the end of your next turn, and you mentally learn their name, their true name, or if the target lacks a name. You can use this a number of times equal to your intelligence modifier, and you get all the stuff after it resets after a long rest. Now, that's important because everything else kind of keys off of knowing true names. If you don't know true names, none of this stuff works. So it's very specific. The other thing that you get at level 2 is fateful naming. So this is like your first foray into like using your magical abilities with true names. You get Bane and Bless as wizard spells. They're always prepared. And they don't count against your number of spells so they don't, you always have them prepared and they don't count against the number of spells that you can prepare. So they're just sitting there. Like in your mind, you know them. You can cast these spells if you want to without expending a spell slot if you speak the true name of the target of the spell casting, target of the spell you're casting it on. And you can cast this spell a number of times per day equal to your intelligence modifier, resets with a long rest. That's neat. I think that very much fits into the idea of like you can tilt karma if you know somebody's true name.
Sure.
Do you have anything to say about that before we move on?
No, I mean the only thing that I have to say, I will say at the end. So we'll continue
because it's probably about the whole thing together, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I have some issues with some of this myself, which I want to talk about later.
Yep.
And then at 6th level, you get the thing that really makes this class kind of come into its own, this arcane tradition. It's resonant utterance. So there is a list of options. I won't talk about all of them, but once you get here, you get 2 of them. You get to choose 2 of them from this list, and then you know them. You can replace one every time you level up as a wizard with a different one, and it requires you to know their true name when you cast a spell with a spell slot. So it can't be a cantrip. And then you get to use one of these extra things. So the real quick list is Absorption. It gives you temporary hit points. Devastation. It causes disadvantage on the first saving throw against the spell. We'll talk about a couple of them in more depth, but I just want to get through the list. Dissolution. The first time a creature takes damage, it does extra damage. Nullification. You can end a spell on someone. Puppetry. It lets you move people around a little bit. And Sympathy. It lets you target creatures even if you can't see them. So, Shawn, which one? Let's talk about. I think one of the more interesting ones to talk about is Dissolution, and also Nullification. Those are the 2 that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
So, the Dissolution one is the first time a named creature takes damage from the spell, they take an extra 2d8 force damage.
And it increases when you get to 10th and 14th level.
Yeah, so
to
it scales.
3d8 and 4d8. Yep, it scales.
Yep. I think that's really cool. Like you can actually harm something by just whacking them.
And speaking its true name.
True name, because it gives you more power over them. So that makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, and I think what makes it even better is, as you say, it can't be a cantrip.
Correct.
So you actually have to use that spell slot, which I think is what evens all of this out and makes it work on every level, right? It works fun, flavorful, and mechanically balanced.
And it's worded in such a way that spells that do damage over time, it still only hits it once.
Yep.
And then Nullification is fascinating to me because you can use this on your own people or on enemies to get rid of buffs on people or get rid of debuffs on your own people. It's essentially having a Dispel Magic spell.
This is true. Let me read it out. If the named target is affected by any other spells, you know what spells they are, and you can attempt to end one of your choice by succeeding on an intelligence check with a DC equal to 10 plus the level of the chosen spell. So, yes. You can cast a spell on something, cast a spell on something, add nullification, and make that intelligence check to get rid of a spell. So, perfectly worded for debuffing or saving your ally from an effect.
I agree,
Yeah.
and it's essentially dispel magic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty much.
You just got yourself a couple of dispel magic spells if you pick that one.
Yep.
And it fits like right in that same space too. Like dispel magic's a 3rd level spell, so you're getting access to it like essentially 1 level later.
Yeah, and if you choose this, you definitely want as the player, as the wizard player, to take a couple of buff spells. So if you do need to cast it on your friend, you're not having to hit them with a fireball to get rid of the charm person on them.
It's true. Well, I mean, you already have Bless and Bane, right?
But
and
you're
as
not using a spell slot. To
you
cast
can you can choose to use a spell slot to cast it,
Gotcha.
though.
Yep, you're right.
So you have the option.
Yep.
I thought the same thing you did until I thought about it for another second. Like you have it prepared so you can. If you do it as the free one, you can't do that. But if you do it as the not free one, then you can.
There you go. So you could use Bane at any point as well to affect the bad guys.
Or
A bad guy. You're only targeting one creature with any of these.
Yeah, whichever one has the
true name.
The true name of.
Yeah. Okay.
It's interesting. I think it's pretty good.
Yep. So
All
at
right.
10th level, you get inexorable pronouncement, which means you just learn 2 new resonants of your choice.
Yep. So you have access to 4 instead
4
of 2.
Yep.
And then relentless naming is. I actually like this one. It's higher level. It makes sense to me, where you can basically get around people's damage reduction, because when you hit them with a spell, you can deal force or psychic damage with the spell instead of whatever the spell would normally do, as long as you know their true name.
Yep. I think that makes perfect sense.
I also think it's terrifying. Say you're like something that has fire resistance, and then you get hit with a fire spell, but like it still singes you because they've gotten into your mind.
I cast Psychic Ball.
I guess well, it's more like fire can't hurt me. Why is the fire hurting me?
Why it hurts my brain.
Yeah. It almost turns it into like a physical illusion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could see it that way, or a force damage. So.
Okay, so what are your thoughts about this one?
I'm good. I like it. Again, I could see a few tweaks that might need to be made here and there, but what overall, the premise I love. It's the rules that go along with it, how it fits into the narrative as well as the mechanical part of D&D, is always a question for me. And so, under the sidebar where it says true names, the last paragraph is, as a quick guide, a creature has a true name if it understands at least one language or it has an alignment. So, no animals have true names.
Mm-hmm.
What about, mechanical
Constructs?
What about constructs? What about golems that understand a language? Because it's not and has alignment, it's or has an alignment. So do golems have true names? It turns into that sort of debate that needs to be very clear, both as a narrative aspect and as a mechanical aspect. Because my next question is, if I can't find someone's true name, I come up against this bad guy who is going to escape maybe during the combat, and I failed to learn their true name with my extract name ability. Is there any other way I can find their true name?
Yeah, because then you can't get it via that way anymore.
Right, because it says if it makes it save, you cannot get it.
So
yeah.
I feel like you can, just not that way.
Right.
But that's all about your table and how you want to play the game.
Right. So now it becomes not a mechanical question, but a narrative question. Can I use downtime to research this person and find their true name? Can I somehow trick them into telling me their true name? All of this thing comes into play, and for the sake of continuity, of course, any DM can run their own game in any way they choose. But for the sake of making a game where we have a shared language and a shared understanding. That needs to be clarified.
Yeah. How would you do it?
How would I do it?
Yeah.
I would definitely make narratively. You need a way to be able to get their true name. So I would put in rules for downtime to do that, but make it a significant cost.
Well, that's not necessarily narratively. That's a mechanism. Spending downtime is a resource. But I see what you're saying. Like there should be if there are other avenues to acquiring a true name, they should be more specifically spelled out.
Yes.
And using downtime to research, at least maybe to give you another chance at making another roll, I think would be good. I think, or at least knowing like there is no way, like that spending that downtime, like, well, this creature's name isn't exactly an easy one to get this way. Like you actually have to go interact with the person for a period of time to learn their true name, right?
Yep.
And that's another way to do it. Like, well, I'm going to spend X amount of time or have X amount of moments with this person, then that will give me a chance to learn their true name.
Mm-hmm. And guess what, folks? You have true names too as players.
Mm-hmm.
How are you guarding yours?
If you're guarding yours.
Are you guarding yours? If something is trying to get yours, but you want to get someone else's, the rules have to be similar.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can guard yours and no one can ever find it, then that's got to be true of someone else. So keep that in mind too, right? It's got to work both ways.
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying with the thing though, and I agree with you. Like, there's only one methodology mechanically to acquire a true name, and if you don't get it, then you can't get it. And so what are the other options? Like that's a block, and we don't like blocks in games like this.
Right. Let us know. Let us know the story, and let us know the mechanics and how they work together.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Hopefully they'll just have a longer sidebar next time.
Yeah.
Be like, here are the other ways that someone could possibly acquire a true name. That would be a great list to have, right?
That would be.
So, I want to talk about Descent into Avernus, but we've been talking for 42 minutes.
It's true, we have. And we will probably do more podcasts, Chris.
We were probably going to do more podcasts.
So I would say next time we will start our descent into the actual adventure.
Yes, I agree. Which we'll talk probably up into the dungeon of the three.
Yep.
Well, with that, I think we should get to some Patreon shoutouts. What do you think, Shawn?
Let's do that.
Eileen Barnes, Andrew Dacey, Andy Olson, Brian Kurtz, Christopher Gray, Craig Just Craig, Donnie Harville, Eric Bonts, GM Gerrymander, Jared Rasher, Jesse Edmonds, Jim Likes Games, John C. LeMay, John Carney, Kevin Lovecraft, Merrick Blackman, Mike Dinos, P.K. Sullivan, and Richard Wyatt. Those are members of our royal court. They all have various and sundry titles that I very much enjoy saying. I'm not going to say them today because you're all awesome, and that's all you need to know. And speaking of patrons, if you'd like to be a patron of Down with D&D, you can click on the link to our Patreon page on the website, and for $2 a month, you can get yourself a shout-out.
Or for $4 a month, you not only get that shout-out, but you also get to see our elaborate pre-production show notes, and you get access to our Misdirected Mark Slack room, where you can chat with us at your pleasure.
Our show notes, they have me writing like shorthand these days, too, so you can see my ridiculous shorthand that doesn't make any sense to anybody.
And it's funny because we have people who are like, may we please see your show notes to use in our games? And I'm like, okay, cool.
Do they really?
Yeah.
I've seen that a couple times. I haven't seen it in a while. They ask you usually?
Well, someone asked you already.
Well, they asked, yeah. Somebody asked us for our adventure design notes. That was fascinating.
Yeah.
Or to outline our adventure design stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can't help us monetarily, but you want to give us a boost, you can do so with an Apple Podcast review or a podcast review anywhere.
Yeah, reviewing us anywhere, but especially on Apple, will help us get our news out there that we have a show that some people actually like. But you can help us anywhere by going anywhere on social media, linking to our show, and telling people that you enjoy it. And we appreciate that.
Shawn, where can people interact with you on the interwebs?
On the interwebs, the best interaction point is Twitter, where I am at Shawn Merwin, or go to our almost new Misdirected Mark forums, where each of the shows... What's that?
Slightly old?
Slightly old now. where you can discuss with us what we're talking about. If you have a differing viewpoint, we would love to hear about it. And the forums are a great place to have that discussion with a bunch of very bright folks, and Chris and I.
Yeah, forums.misdirectedmark.com.
There you go. How about you, Chris? Where can we find you?
I'm at the Light 101 on Twitter. I mean, if you want to, you can also just go at Misdirected Mark. That is the network Twitter, and we always get informed if you go at Misdirected Mark. Our wonderful and fantastic chief, Rob Eberzato, he always pings us whenever somebody down with D&D's at us. The other place you can interact with me is on the website. Like, if you leave a comment on the show, I almost always see it, or get told about it. You can also go to our new Twitch channel and YouTube page where you can catch other great shows. That's another place to interact with me. And one of those great shows is the BXP Bicons. So this is a group of non-binary folks playing role-playing games on Twitch. They are starting with Blades in the Dark, so you can trip down to Duskval and hang out with them. They play on Sundays from 8:30 till 11ish.
Okay.
And that is at twitch.tv/misdirectedmark.
Down with D&D is a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs.
So, Shawn, what are we going to do now?
We are going to go kill some demons and devils, but not until next week.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Get down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Who's down with D&D?
This whole party.
You down with D&D?
Yeah, you know me.
You down with D&D?
Yeah, you know me.
I'm down with D&D.
Yeah, you know me.
Who's down with D&D?